Live.
All right, I'll go ahead, Lee.
All right, everybody, welcome to our new special live episode, 10-Minute Misconduct. We're here to talk about the chaos in Vermillion County. And you'll notice we have a special guest here. We have Dante Juris, who is an original member of the Vermillion County Bobcats. And he's here just pretty much tell us about what went down and what it was like playing for that team. So, Dante, we'll let you kind of take the reins from here. Tell us pretty much what was the experience like, the first training camp and that first season.
Oh yeah. Okay. So first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's obviously pretty important to be able to get the story out there, not just what I went through personally, but what everyone went through, what the 120 odd players we had put on the sweater, and however many staff we had. I think almost everyone who was a part of that organization had problems at one point or another, and it's tough to find an opportunity to talk about that. So I think it's good that I have this opportunity. So really to properly tell the story, and I know everyone wants to know what's going on right now, but to properly, tell the story about what's happening right now with the team is just right from the beginning. My first experience with the team was I was let off of a PTO with Huntsville due to an injury. So I was kind of scrambling to find a new place to play. And I had a friend that had signed a PTO with Vermillion County. So I was obviously looking at them and reading some of the articles and stuff where the owner, Ellen Tully, was talking about her vision for the team, her plans and everything. It looked really good right off the bat. She was always, in every article, she was talking about, I want my players to have a life outside of hockey. I want to support them. Like the mental health side is important. So we want to have systems in place for all of that stuff. And the thing that really drew my attention was the tuition reimbursement program. I'm a guy, I like to learn. I like to be in school, and obviously that gets expensive. So if I could have offset some of those costs, that's what I wanted to do. So that essentially was my main deciding factor for joining the Bobcats. So, in the articles, there was one article where she was talking about, I'm a strong, independent woman and people will respect me and I won't take any crap from the men. And anytime you see something like that, it's kind of like red flag, like strong, independent.
Uh-oh.
Looks like we're having a little
Bear with
technical
us, guys.
difficulties here.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. Give us just a second to get worked out. Does anybody have a topic we want to just talk on till he gets his service back?
Yeah.
I know that there's like some people still like listed on the website as part of the team. So I think what they're trying to do here is I think get some guidance from SPHL on the direction that they want to take the team. I understand that there are a couple options on the table. One option I don't understand why they're not using at this point is why they're not communicating with the other teams, fans, and people associated with this Vermillion County team on what the hell is going on. Because there's a lot of people right now, I believe,
drive
are
100 miles.
Correct. There's a lot of teams in limbo right now, and they're trying to, make their travel plans, and so fans too, that want to play away game, see an away game somewhere else. But I think we have Dante back. Dante, can you hear us?
Yep, I'm back. It wouldn't be a Bobcats podcast without some problems, of course. The old joke was we'd always have problems on a Tuesday, so it's just a Bobcat Tuesday for the boys.
Well, we made sure that Ellen wasn't infiltrating the lines, but I'll throw it back, and you go ahead and finish out what you're saying.
Yeah, so the red flag, the only red flag I saw in the beginning was there was an article where she was talking about I'm a strong, independent woman, and I'm not going to take crap from any of the boys. And anytime a strong, independent woman has to tell you she's a strong, independent woman, she probably isn't. Actions speak for themselves, and if you're saying you are, you probably aren't. But that was really it for red flag. So I happily signed the PTO, and I was struggling to get into contact with the coach and the team before camp, and there really wasn't a whole lot of communication going on. So I literally had my GPS set for the David S. Palmer on the day I was leaving for camp. didn't know where I was going. I didn't know, there wasn't a time I was told to be there. It was just the date, be there October 7th or 6th, I think it was. Just be there. So I set my GPS for the arena, and made my way there. And really, it was just going back and forth with another guy on the PTO, that I finally got a hold of our equipment manager at the time. And he's like, okay, here's the address to the apartments. Meet me there. So I met the EQ at the apartments, and he got me set up. He was a great guy. Loved him. Sad to have seen him leave. He actually left really early on because he had his own issues and with how things were going, and honestly got a better offer. So good for him. He escaped. But so I got into the apartment, and I get there, and there's no running water in the apartment. So that's problem number one. You get there, you want to use the bathroom, maybe take a shower and settle in. Can't do that. We don't have running water. And then I also noticed we're missing so many things. Like, I'll give them credit where it's due. They did go out and get furniture. We had couches, had a kitchen table and all that stuff, had beds. But it was the little things. Like, you go in the kitchen, they bought us forks, knives, spoons, no plates. Like, we got pots and pans, no cups. Like, what am I going to do with this? No dish. Well, the dishwasher was there, but it didn't work. But no
Wow.
toaster, no microwave, like basic things. So the first team bonding thing I ended up doing with the boys was going to Walmart and spending probably $700 on things for the apartment, things that probably should have been there. I guess there was a group chat that I wasn't added to prior to getting to training camp. So in the group chat, they had said, hey, we won't have bedding for you. But I wasn't in that group chat, and no one bothered to tell me that. So I get there, and my first night, Walmart was already closed. I slept my first night in Vermillion County without a blanket or pillow, just laying on the bed. So, it was problems right from the beginning, and it was a train wreck from there. Wake up the next day to find out, well, we don't have ice. So that's great. We had a team meeting about it. We were told it's because we don't have a Zamboni. There's the rink is causing us issues, but we have a Zamboni coming. It's in customs. I don't know how many times we heard the Zamboni was in customs or it was on its way or something. I don't think it ever was, because, we ended up fixing the Zam we had to get ice. So it's just the communication was really bad right off the bat. And, if the issues we were having were the arena and not ownership, they sure did a poor job of fixing it, from the ownership side. They could have been out trying to borrow a Zamboni so they could build our ice or something like that. That never happened. So essentially, we didn't have a training camp our first year. So pretty much we were told, just go to the gym, try to get out and do something. There weren't team functions really in place. They did buy us dinner a couple times, but that was about it. And then 2 days into having the gym, we got told, hey, don't go to the gym. We don't have insurance. We don't have health insurance. So if you get hurt, that, we can't help you. So essentially training camp was us sitting around, playing video games and hanging out and wondering what the heck's going on. We only had like a couple meetings to tell us what's going on. And it wasn't until the night before our first scheduled first games of the year, that we found out we weren't playing. And we found out by me throwing in the group chat, hey, are we playing? No one had bothered to inform us. We're watching the days tick by till our first game. I believe they were home games against Peoria. No one told us we weren't playing until I threw in the group chat, hey, are we playing? And they're like, no, we're not going to play. We'll keep you up to date. So, it's off to a terrible start. And it just kind of went downhill. We finally had practice the following week. We had to take vans to Indy, to practice at a rink in Indy, which is about an hour and a half drive from Danville. So we rented a couple vans, crammed into the vans. I mean, some of the most uncomfortable van rides, and we get to Indy. We had, honestly, our coach at the time, Mike Watt, great coach. He wasn't too crazy with the practices because obviously we hadn't been doing anything for over a week now. And, So we had our practices. I think we had 2, maybe 3 practices, and then had our first weekend set in quad. And actually, credit to the guys we had, because that weekend set in quad, we just didn't have any of the things we should have. Like, we didn't have a trainer. We actually didn't end up getting a trainer until after Christmas and the New Year. So we didn't have a trainer. The EQ that had left, we didn't have him for any of our practices in Indy. And we didn't get our new EQ until that day in quad. I think he met us at the rink before quad. So it was tough. We were kind of scrambling, and credit to the guys. We actually played pretty well. I think we only lost. I think it was a 3-2 loss. So, I mean, that was the beginning. And then after our first
It's almost fitting that it started out in Quad City and then this week was Quad City.
Yeah, it is pretty fitting. So after our first games in quad, we kept.
Looks like we have difficulties again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, pretty amazing so far. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
Absolutely
nothing in the kitchen like that.
This isn't even something that you could, turn and pull out from a movie. It's.
We
were just saying that. Yeah, we were just saying that this is like something from a movie, like a horrible B movie. It's.
Yeah.
I think Sean Patrick's probably done the most research out of us about the whole situation, but this is crazy. I can't even put it into words.
Oh yeah, a lot of these stories, have never really been told to anyone other than. So, and that's really my main motivation of getting out there today, is to let people know just the nonsense we dealt with. And for the boys that are there right now, like it might seem trivial why they're currently not playing, but when you add up, all the stuff from the year before and from this year, it's just at some point it becomes too much. So
I also think there's some things that fans just don't know, the scenes things, so they're only seeing. Yeah,
there's tons of it. So to get back to it, after our first games, we still didn't have ice because that was still getting sorted out, and actually we still didn't even have like gitch or anything. So we were told our gitch was on a ship in the bay waiting for us. Well, I guess it's still sitting on that ship because we never got it. So just basic things. So we got our new coach somewhere between our first game with quad and our first home game. We actually did sell out that game. It was a cool atmosphere, and it really gave the guys a lot of hope for what the team was going to be. And that's kind of the reoccurring theme of just endless having hope that things are going to turn around, endlessly having hope that, things would be what they were promised to be. And they never did become that way. But we finally got our new coach. We had a good game, good sellout. The fans were behind us, and that was pretty cool. But the problems, they continued. So our first home game, we had problems. We didn't provide Evansville with the things they were supposed to have. So the league has mandates for what the home team needs to provide, like Gatorade, water, warm-up equipment like a bike and all that stuff. And we just didn't have those things for them. So I'd honestly like to apologize to all the guys that came to Danville to play us as well, because it's nonsense, and those are things that, that's solely on ownership. It's not hard to provide a workout bike so that guys can get warmed up for games. It's not hard to make sure you have Gatorade set out for the other team. Like, these aren't difficult things, but we still didn't have a trainer at that point. We had a brand new equipment manager, and we just didn't have the staff to do it. So there's issues with that. After the game, no one brought us dinner. We didn't have a booster club. Rumor has it that Ellen had pushed out the Dashers boosters because she didn't want anything to do with the Danville Dashers. So we didn't have a booster club. We didn't have anyone. So we would have to go after the game to Applebee's on our own dime, be up till midnight, 1 a.m. trying to feed ourselves, knowing full well we got more games, on the weekend. So, and I think it might have been after that first home game that Ellen came in the locker room and absolutely reamed out one of the boys for not being physical enough in her eyes, because, I thought he laid the body okay. He was a bigger guy. So sure, he could be the most physical guy on the team, but you just don't do that. You're the owner. You don't come into the locker room and bitch at a player for not being physical enough. That's embarrassing. It's just things you don't do. So, I mean, that was kind of where I think a lot of guys really realized that we were settling in for a pretty long season. Anytime you have an owner coming in the locker room bitching at players, it's just not good.
And Dante,
that's unprofessional.
Yeah, and not to interrupt you,
wildly unprofessional.
Not to interrupt you or anything, but just to add like some context, just for anyone who's like not super up on the. So Ellen's experience in hockey was through photography for 20 years. So
strong independent photography,
and that's the wrap of the resume. So, which, hey, you need those things are there. It supports the team. It helps with. I mean, that creates the market, but don't gripe about me being physical and using the body when you've never stepped foot on the ice, and only when there's like a ceremonial puck drop. So that's it goes.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that's just it's wildly unprofessional, and it's just not a good look all around. So it continued from there. I think on our next road trip, we didn't get per diem, which for those of you who don't know, every road trip there's a league rule. You have to pay players a certain amount of money for being on the road. And we as players need that. We don't make a ton of money. So we need all the help that we can get from our teams, and honestly from our fans as well, from things like boosters, things that weren't set up for us. But we need all the help that we can get. So if you're going on the road and you don't get per diem, well, now that's another $20, $30, $40, $50 out of your paycheck at the end of the week that you have to spend on food on the road. And that should be taken care of, and not getting per diem happened several times. And again, it adds up. And it happened beginning of the year, it happened in the middle of the year, it happened at the end. It was just consistently happening. And, our poor coaches, our poor trainers, all our staff were trying to make it right. And I don't think that they had anything to do with it. We'll touch on that later on with some of the firings that occurred. They were blamed for a lot of things, but frankly, was not their fault. So she was pretty vindictive with certain things, withholding things from the boys based on our performance and things. Like our first long road trip to Roanoke, the boys asked, like, hey, are we getting a sleeper bus or what's the deal on that? And no sleeper bus. You guys don't deserve it. You haven't earned it. You haven't won yet. So it's like, oh, great. Now we got a 10, 11 hour road trip, no sleeper, because we don't deserve it. That's cool. So it's things like that that sour the relationship and really demoralize a locker room for honestly no reason. There's just no call for that. Right. If you don't want to get a sleeper, just lie and say it's not in the budget. You don't have to tell the locker room you guys don't deserve it. That's kind of absurd. So moving on,
Dante, real quick. So just
ahead.
So we can, just for anybody who just jumped on. So go ahead and we're with Dante Juris right now from the Vermillion team. All the situation going on here for anybody just joining on. We've just been talking a couple of minutes. Dante played for the teams, kind of giving us some insight on exactly what's happened, because it's really hard to find this information from someone who's been involved in like an article or anything. So just for anybody jumping on, just so you kind of know where we're at. Dante just kind of filling us in on some details. So Dante, you go ahead and continue. Sorry to interrupt you again, but.
Oh, you're right. So moving forward, one of the things that Ellen loved to repeat to us is we're a family. This is a family. We're all going to treat each other great. We love each other. But for being such a great family, nothing was planned for holidays or anything. Like a lot of teams, you know, you would plan a Thanksgiving dinner for your boys, or set something up. Nothing like that was planned for us for any holiday ever. So our first Thanksgiving as a team, I just stepped up and cooked the whole meal. I love to cook. I cook for the boys all the time. Anyone on the team, any given night's welcome at my house. I'm almost always cooking. I'll do pregame meals, postgame meals, whatever the case may be. And saying that I'm, a pretty good cook, I was just like, okay, well, I'll cook for the boys. So we actually won our first game the night before Thanksgiving and had a game the day immediately preceding Thanksgiving. So I cooked Thanksgiving. The reason why this is relevant, we'll get into later on, because that covers up how I ended my time with the Bobcats. But so I cooked Thanksgiving, and it went over great, and we had a great time. And that was kind of like the time where I felt that the team was really starting to come together, really starting to bond. But the roster just ended up getting changed so much because guys didn't want to be there because of other nonsense and stuff like that. So, the core group that we ended up keeping stayed pretty close, but it was hard. It was hard keeping players. But yeah, so after Thanksgiving, I finally got my first paycheck in the beginning of December. So I had gone the entire season up to that point without having been paid. So, and I know that was a problem for a lot of other guys as well, just missing paychecks and such. And, the organization had enough money that players could be getting paid. But when you don't have enough staff in the front office to handle things like accounting and whatnot, you run into those problems, right? So you hire a broadcaster, but then you tell him he also has to take care of travel plans, and he also has to take care of the accounting and making sure guys get paid. And oh, by the way, you're also doing marketing, but you're just a broadcaster, right? So things like that were issues, and I could go in depth with some of the nonsense that was said about our poor broadcaster, but he didn't deserve any of that. But yeah, I finally got paid in December, and then the Festival of Trees hit, which, again, for those of you who aren't in Danville, we every season the arena hosts a Festival of Trees where they decorate Christmas trees and put them on our ice and cover our ice. And this was a known thing. We lose the ice for about 2 weeks. This was a known thing, so obviously it could have been well planned, But here we are, the week of the Festival of Trees, no ice for practice, figuring out last minute, hey, where are we going to practice? Are we going back to Indy? Are we going to go to Bloomington? Are we going to try to get ice somewhere else? Like, what are we going to do? Why are we figuring this out last minute? Like, this is just added stress that the boys don't need. We got our coach, like, clueless as to, are we going to have practice today? Or are we not? That, like, poor needs. He did everything he could for us and then some. So it's nonsense. And then probably one of the funnier stories to come out of that particular Festival of Trees is we were going to have practice in Bloomington, and we ordered vans at practice. And then John, our broadcaster, who also was our travel planner, comes in and tells us, oh, our two vans that we rented crashed together in the parking lot, so we don't have vans.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know how believable that was. We found that pretty funny. Which it is kind of funny to be told, hey, your two vans you rented crashed together, right? But the unfortunate side of that story is it could just be a funny thing. But guess what? We have to drive to Bloomington. And then, of course, oh, we'll reimburse you for gas. That never happened.
So personal
and again,
vehicles.
Personal
Right.
vehicles reimburse you for gas doesn't happen. And again, like, this may not seem like a big deal. It may seem trivial, but when you're talking about, $50, $60 in gas twice in a week, and you're not making that much money, you're not making a ton of money, everything counts. And to
Especially you just said that you got paid. Especially you said you just got paid in December.
Yeah, I had just gotten my first paycheck like a couple of weeks prior, so it's tough, and it doesn't help anything. So
I guess
yeah.
the question that just come to mind now is, you got that first paycheck. Was it everything you were owed, or was it just 1 week's worth of pay?
It was everything I was owed, fortunately. Like, I don't think, and I could be wrong because this year has been infinitely worse than last year, shockingly. I could be wrong, but I think everyone got everything they were owed eventually. But with pay, it was like, God, your paycheck's a week late, 2 weeks late, a month late, you know, not getting our tax papers, which is still something we've got guys dealing with. We got guys, who haven't seen each other for 6-7 months, throwing in our old group chat from last year just this week, hey, have you guys gotten your tax information yet from the team? Like, oh no, great, thanks Ellen. You're one of the Canadian guys is now having to deal with U.S. taxes because the team can't file taxes right and can't get them their paperwork. So just ridiculous stuff that never ends, of course. But yeah, I think it was after the Bloomington week, the Festival of Trees, we lost that equipment manager. And, there wasn't really an announcement made about it. I think he was fired, but some people are claiming he needed to go home for family reasons. And that's a common theme, people getting fired or released and complete lies about what happened to those people. But we lose our equipment manager, and now our coach is in a position where he has to do our laundry. He has to do the away team's laundry after games. So he's at the rink till 4 a.m. and then expected to prepare for games. Then we've got our team captain sharpening our wheels. We've got another one of the players sharpening our skates. So, you go out for morning skate, get a morning skate, and then, oh, guess what, captain? You can't go home and have lunch. You got to sharpen skates for the next hour and a half. Like, and
That's
if we did lose our equipment manager to family reasons, you can't blame the team. But do I think we lost him to family reasons? No, I don't. I'm pretty sure he was fired. And if you're going to fire a critical staff member like that, probably have someone else lined up before you do that. Because then you're just making it the player's problem, but it's always the player's problem with that organization, or should I say that owner. Yeah. So shortly after that, I think we had our first issues with the sewage in the locker room backing up. This one, I don't think we can put on our beloved owner, Ellen. I actually do think that was an issue with the arena, but I will say, I don't think she made it any easier on the arena to fix the issues, wanting to sue them and do this and that rather than just, being like, hey, can we just get this resolved? It's always got to be threats and accusations of wrongdoing.
Yeah, part of the lawsuit that was made for the whole ice situation due to the sewage. That was back in, I believe it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken. But those were squished together for some odd reason. Instead of just going and saying, hey, can you fix the problem, making it seem like asked a million times and nothing's been done about it, when, from what you're saying, the Zamboni thing wasn't there. There was no equipment there to be used at that point. So that kind of adds a lot to that story. But
and yeah, because I think at the beginning of the season they had some issues with the ice and all that stuff.
I had to
heard
start talking. There he is. Okay,
I'm back.
I had to start talking and just ruin everything. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm on some kind of loop that keeps logging me out of this every 15 minutes or so, but we can live with that. We can deal with it. It's a Bobcat Tuesday, so.
The sewage thing was part of the lawsuit with the ice.
Yeah.
The ice
system. So it was kind of seemed
arena never going to go good for any owner.
Well, I mean, from the outside looking in, you look at it and you think the arena is the most of our problems with the sewage backup and the other things that occurred, but it wasn't, and there were other problems with the arena too. Like our locker room, especially in the winter, was freezing cold. It would be down to like 55, 50 degrees. Like there would be days where we'd be doing a 2-3 hour film session in the locker room and I'd just be there shaking in my stall, like hoping my coach doesn't call me out for literally shivering and teeth clacking and stuff. But so there were definitely issues with the arena, and that doesn't help the team perform by any stretch. But of course, you know, our gracious owner would throw in our group chat, you don't deserve to be in, you guys don't deserve to play in the league. You should be playing in the federal league. You know, that was actually said in the group chat. She put in there, you know, post in the group chat right now why you even want to be here. It's like, you know, okay, so you're going to take like the issues with the arena and then just make it even worse by just going off and doing things like that. It's like, why is that necessary? But yeah, we did deal with some pretty stupid things at the arena.
Not realizing her saying that, isn't she she's the one who pretty much signed you guys. So if you guys aren't good enough for the SPHL, whose fault is that?
Well, yeah, and that brings another thing is one of her favorite things to say is it's the coach's team, it's his roster, it's his locker room. But then you're in a situation where she's saying, don't sign this player. I don't want that player. Get rid of this player. So it's like, is it really his locker room? Is it his roster? Can you blame him for what's happening? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it's just like you take these situations that could be funny, you know, like, oh no, there's literal feces in our locker room. Could be a funny thing, and you just blow it up to be awful. Or one morning we show up to the rink and there's not electricity, so we don't have the lights on, so we're getting dressed in the dark. You know, and we have a good laugh about that, right? But then it gets blown out of proportion, and then, you know, there's threats of lawsuit. And now we're worried about, are we even going to be able to finish the season because are we going to get evicted? You know, so you take things that don't have to be a big deal and you blow them up to be these horrendous things. So it's kind of stupid.
Yeah, we have a comment from one of our YouTube viewers, Amanda Walker, said, I can't tell you how many people reached out to try and help. We would have totally fed you guys and helped with laundry or whatever needed to be done. So that tells you everything, that fans were reaching out to the organization. It seemed like the organization just ignored them.
Oh yeah. I mean, we could have had some of the best fans in the league if they had been allowed to be fans, even because when we got the team, Ellen didn't want anything to do with the Dashers, didn't want anything to do with that old Fed organization. And say what you will about the Fed, that has no bearing on the fans and the people in the community. Like, there's no reason we couldn't have taken the booster club that was the boosters from the Dashers and made them our booster club. And that would have sorted issues like not having food after our games. And actually, it was towards around Christmas time that we got our one and only booster, or team mom, as we called her. Her name was Carla. Just a saint. I think she's still doing the same stuff for the boys. And she's the only one. And she's, you know, buying us bagels and buying us fruit and stuff. So we have snacks before practice and whatnot. And it's just like, it's all on her to do that. And she does it because she cares and because she's a wonderful person, but she should have help with that. There should be a booster club. I think every other organization in the league has a booster club. So I don't see why we couldn't have had that.
Well, and
again,
Ellen,
it is what it is.
Ellen is literally quoted on the team's website. Literally at the end for like little is it literally says, it's a quote, and it says, be stronger. The best thing to do is to make it realize what it loves in unity. So if that's your goal, it loves hockey, let it come together. Like, you look at these quotes that she's saying about three things. I want to focus on my coaches, and then I want to focus on my players, and I want to focus on the community. These things, you're following your dad's footsteps, all this stuff about these things, and you want your community involved. You want to bring healing to the community. You want to bring like a prosperous team to the community. The community had a prosperous team in, you know, the SPHL. You had a perfect setup to do something about it. And numbers, it's not even a fact of situational, personal things. The numbers say everything, and the fact of, you know, a successful, you know, market, and then someone ruining a completely fine market. Y'all had a completely fine setup, and one person ruined that.
Well, the funny thing about the attendance numbers is those are all faked as well. You know, our owner's favorite thing to say last year is we averaged 1,500. That's the most percent capacity of any team in the league. But that's just not true. Like, if you go back and watch the hockey TV streams. I think my girlfriend went to a game once and counted all of 112 people, and that night it said 1,200 on the official attendance record. So, I mean,
that is zero to the end. What's the big deal, right?
Yeah, and I've kind of been giggling about that this year because as everyone wants to ream the team for only having 400 or 500 in the building, it's not even close to 400 or 500 this year. We're probably averaging 200, 250. So I mean, and honestly, and why as a hockey fan in Danville would you come to the games? I mean, like. There is no fan interaction. Like you show up and you get to watch hockey and that is it. There's between whistles and TV timeouts, there's nothing happening. Between between periods, there's nothing happening. And the excuse that Ellen loves to give is, oh, it's the rink's fault. The Zamboni is so slow that we can't have things on the ice and get the ice zammed in time. So it's their fault. We can't do chuck-a-puck. Well, okay, do you have to do it on the ice? Like, you have a camera and a projector, like set up a booth in a corner and do something like Bobcats trivia, hockey trivia, something, anything.
100%.
But that just comes along with when you have your broadcaster who could be planning these things out in your team travel and everything else. Maybe he's not able to do those things. And that's assuming that you would want your broadcaster doing those things and you don't just hire, a PR person like most organizations would. When your inaugural season, you have at most 3 people in your front office, but the majority of it 2, one of them the broadcaster and one of them a marketing person.
While we wait for him to get back, I just wanted, Ellen, if you're watching, you suck so much. You suck at marketing. You suck at treating humans like as people or people. I don't get it. If you don't know how to run a hockey organization, don't run with the big boys and say that you're a strong, independent woman when you're not.
Yeah, it's sad to me.
I mean,
if
you're watching too.
Yeah, because I mean, people are going to be idiots. She's a woman because she's a woman. She doesn't know how to run a hockey team. Wanda Amos ran the Columbus Cottonmouths for almost 15 years. A woman can run a successful hockey team. She won 2 championships in the SPHL. It's not that she's a woman. It's that she did. Hey, you know what? I'm going to come out and say it. She didn't know what she was doing. She got in over her head.
I don't disagree. There's a lot of things that she probably didn't know what she was doing. But a lot of it is just a sick parody of like if you were going to make a joke of why wouldn't you let a woman run a hockey team? Oh, it's because she's going to make decisions based on emotion. Well, that's what happens here. A lot of the fiascos, a lot of the worst fiascos we dealt with were purely based because she was being addictive towards someone or something and didn't want to, pay for something or didn't want to do something. So, for the person that, is quoted saying, oh, I'm so happy I was able to break the glass ceiling for women. Like, this is doing nothing good for women. Like, I've heard the joke, make hockey great again, take women out of it so many times. And it's just like, you're not helping women at all. Like, you could have made this a great place to play. You could have made this a great organization, and that people would joke that a woman would do. So, and all of the things we've covered so far have only taken us to Christmas time of our first season. Yeah. So if you're listening to this,
40 minutes in, we've only got Christmas of season 1.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're going, "Oh my gosh, how have they dealt with all of this?" Guess what? We're only at Christmas time. So
we do have a question too, real quick.
Yeah, Ryan Gill.
Ryan Gill wants to know: was Ellen ever at a game?
She did go to games. Not all of them, not a lot of them. But she did go to a few. I don't think she did too much fan interaction. As a matter of fact, on the SPHL fan page a few days ago, I saw someone make a joke that the only fan interaction that they ever had with her was at the liquor line at the arena. So I think that probably says a lot.
Yeah. Let's kind of fast
I know
forward
that
a little bit further.
I know that you're in
if we can.
the chat room with like these other players and all that stuff. Are you getting any? Are you still in that chat room with these players that that you were in before? Are you still in that chat room?
The chat with the current players,
Yeah.
they've since made a new one.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out if you got any new information on what's like going to be going on, because I know a lot of people are trying to figure out, what
Right.
from like
Right.
this action and all that stuff.
With
If you get any information.
Yeah, the situation now, it's obviously still pretty fresh, and the league is trying to figure out what they need to do, and obviously the boys are trying to figure out what's best for them. So, I feel very bad for everyone within the league right now for the situation, because they're probably doing everything they can, and this obviously isn't good press for them. And it's a great league. Honestly, it's a very good league. I love playing there. I love being a part of it. It's very well ran. There's 10 excellent organizations in the league, but it just takes this one to make it look bad. So
Okay.
with
But
what's
no new
happening
information.
now, no, there's nothing as of yet. I'm sure that's coming in the very near future.
Okay, because I know there's like fans and all that stuff trying to make plans for this weekend's set of games and all that stuff. So I'm just trying to see if you got any fresh information that that might be helpful to fans trying to attend this weekend's games and all that stuff. So that's where I was thinking.
I probably wouldn't make too many plans. I'll just say that.
Yeah, the report on it from the Board of Governors. They haven't said they're going to have a meeting this week. They haven't not set a date yet, but they are definitely focusing in the players and the rest of the league's interest. Because we were talking about it today. They're supposed to be at Huntsville on the 11th, and they're supposed to be hosting Quad City again on the 14th. The league would have to give out 3 more forfeit points. So it's not just going to happen before then. So like you said, if someone's planning on trying to go to a game this week, it's probably best not. You wouldn't want to take. I mean, they didn't show up to home, so
it's certainly a risk if you're going to try to go this weekend. I mean, like I said, I know the league's probably doing everything they can.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I'm sure they're trying to take care of the players and take care of the other organizations in the league. So it's still early. So obviously be patient, and we'll see what the league has to say in the future. But for now,
we're just trying to, like, I guess, squinder any, like, a lot of people have this, points of views or speculation and all that stuff. We're just trying to, cut this speculation and try to get to the point, basically, just to help the fans and all that stuff. Because a lot of people say stuff and it gets out on social media, and everybody gets their feelings up in their panties and a bunch. But,
so the reason why I felt like it was important to go over the full story of everything that happened in this organization is to make it more understandable for everyone why things are happening the way they are right now. Because, like I said, all this nonsense you've heard, which is probably 10 times more nonsense than any organization in the league has dealt with ever in their entire history, happened before Christmas in our first season. And it has been worse since then, even. So I think that's more why I'm sharing the entire story rather than just, giving the information everyone wants now, because you really have to contextualize it to understand what the players have to deal with. Because, if you want to be mad at the guys for not playing that game on Sunday, that's just really, really unfair. Like, we're not show monkeys. We're people. This is our job. And when you put us in a position where, guys aren't getting paid, guys are getting paid late, taxes are being screwed up, your living situation is being screwed up, it's like it drags on you. We're not monkeys in a zoo. We're not here just for your enjoyment. Like, we're people too.
Completely understandable. Completely understandable.
So I think it's important that everyone knows, what everyone went through, what everyone in the organization went through getting up to this point and why it's gotten to this point. I think that's very important.
If you're just joining us,
a couple questions from the feed.
Problems. So we got Dante Juris here. He's an original Bobcat. He's got some inside information about what it was like playing for Ellen Tully, and so far it hasn't been pretty at all. Not one bit. But real quick, we have another YouTube question from Shelly Coleman. She said, I've heard that Danville Youth Hockey had to use the Bobcat name, but Ellen would not allow them to use the Bobcat image for anything like shirts or hoodies to sell for their league. Do you have any insight on that situation?
We're probably going to have to re-ask that question because of the freezing issue. But I did want to point out there was a Donnie also put, much love from a Dogs fan. This totally sucks for the team, the fans, in the league. And I think it's really amazing that there are fans from other teams reaching out to say that they of the players, because at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing, is that the players know that they're supported. And somebody else also, what can the fans do to be helping the players now?
I mean, I guess just continue to support them. I mean, I saw something about wanting to get together like a GoFundMe or something to get them paid because they're not being paid currently. I think if someone wanted to set that up, that'd be really helpful for them. But, you know, just continue to support them. If there's a way that they can continue the season, you know, come to the games, support them, make sure that the organization stays afloat. You know, hopefully the league can do about the ownership, whether, you know, she ceases to be the owner, you know, takes a more of a backseat role. But just, you know, just doing what everyday fans do, and, you know, if you want to help get them some money, that wouldn't hurt by any stretch.
How aware I know was the league of all the issues?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Shelly Coleman said on YouTube, I've heard the Danville Youth Hockey had to use the Bobcat name, but Ellen wouldn't allow them to use the Bobcat image for anything like shirts or hoodies to sell for fundraisers. Do you have any information about that?
Unfortunately not.
Does it surprise you?
Not in the least bit. Any time that there was a fundraiser or something like that, it was always the Ellen Tully show. It had to be what she wanted. Everything had to be perfect, which goes into some of the nonsense that happened with firing one of our staff members earlier in this season. So it's not surprising.
Okay, now
I know that we're an SPHL podcast and we basically focus on SPHL, but in general, Anna, Lee, I, Taylor, and Sean, we're all player advocates. So if anybody feels they want to come on, reach out to any of us, we're here for you. Just want to let everybody know that we're here for the players. So that's why we have Dante on the show, to get his point of view and his point of the situation. And if any players on the league right now,
office that wants to give your side of the story, get in touch with us.
Too.
People gladly talk to you. We're not. If Ellen wants to talk, if anybody from the front office wants your side, to tell your side of the story, give us a message. We'll gladly go live again and talk to you. We're not,
we're 100% transparent.
We are player advocates, but we're not afraid to talk to both sides.
I mean, maybe Ellen can hopefully we can get Ellen on the show. It'd be great to get her point of view on what's going on. If it's not her fault, well, great. Let's hear what's going on. But
of course it's not her fault. She's the victim.
I don't want to be on that episode.
Right.
Dante, can you tell us how aware was the league of all the issues going on during that time? And did they do anything? Did they step in anyway?
Well, it's kind of funny you asked that question because it ties into exactly what I just said. The league probably had a pretty topical understanding of everything that was going on. I'm sure their only line of communication was probably Coach Niedert or Ellen herself. And, nothing is Ellen's fault. Nothing is nothing that possibly could have happened could have been as a result of her actions. And she's always the victim in some way, shape, or form. So I'm sure the league was not able to do much because I don't think they were getting the full story or much of a story at all.
So let's kind of talk, we got into last season. I'm sure there's some stuff being left out, but can you tell us, being an original Bobcat, you were waived right around Thanksgiving. You brought up last Thanksgiving dinner, and you said it kind of ties into this season. Go into detail of what happened around Thanksgiving of this season.
Oh boy! So the Thanksgiving story this year is purely centered around me and my release. It didn't affect the other boys too much, other than they lost a teammate. So this year, Thanksgiving was mildly planned out more. And I say mildly because it was very mild. We knew that we had a similar schedule where we played the day before and we played on the weekend. So it wasn't like guys were going to be able to go home. Guys were going to have to stay for Thanksgiving. So I was like, okay, I'll step up. I'll cook again. And this year there were some other people within the organization who wanted to contribute. So I was trying to help, help plan with them. Like, okay, if you want to make the mashed potatoes, you make the mashed potatoes. And if you want to bring rolls, you bring rolls, right? So I'm trying to make it a team thing. So stupid that this is even a story being told about pro hockey. But so I was trying to coordinate a Thanksgiving dinner. And after that had all been done and worked out, Ellen texts me and is talking about, oh, I want to, bring this, that, and the other. I want to cook this. I want to cook that. We don't have to do turkey. We can do beef tenderloin instead because it won't take as long. And I was just like, well, I already bought all the stuff for it. I already went to the store with a couple of guys, paid for everything, got everything. Everything's already purchased. But if you want to bring desserts, feel more than free. And she just kind of lost it. She was like, if you don't want me to come, fine, I won't come. And I was like, it's not that at all. Like, you're not understanding what I'm saying. It's just, we've kind of got things nailed down. And if you want to make something, just let me know and we can work that out. And she wasn't having any of that. I tried to call her. She ignored my phone call. The last thing she said to me was, just leave me alone. Very mature. And then, Thanksgiving went off without a hitch. Of course, she wasn't there. She did proceed, however, to bitch to probably 5 different people within the organization about how horrible of a person I am and, how I was leaving her out of Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving went off without a hitch. The boys had fun. It was good. And then I suited up for one more game. Only took one shift in that game, probably because she had him release me. So I was released from a hockey team for something that had nothing to do with hockey as the oldest serving Bobcat, no less. And I was not the first player to be released based on non-hockey related things, and I certainly was not the last.
Did she show up for the Thanksgiving dinner?
No, she didn't.
Wow.
I guess I just want to put it out there a little bit, like maybe off topic for a little bit, but I just want to say thank you to all the Quad City players that took the ice after the game on Sunday and skated with the Bobcat fans. That right there is the demonstration of what a hockey family is. When an opposing team drives over 200 miles to play a game that a home team does not show up for, and yet sticks around and does a post-game skate with the fans, those fans will have a memory that will last them a lifetime. I mean, I know just the pictures and all that stuff of them there will last a lifetime itself. So, Quad City Storm, thank you very much for doing what you did. You just made a whole bunch of people your fans.
Like most, actually all of the organizations in the league, Quad City is a first-class organization, and it doesn't surprise me one bit that they stuck around to skate with the fans. It's par for the course for their organization and honestly every other organization, except unfortunately, unlike the Bobcats.
Yeah. Brett Pugh asked, is there a way for fans to get, goodie bags or food or anything to help out the players still in Danville?
I could try to set something up, but at the moment there's not, because
through Facebook.
Well, if you want to contact some of the individual players that are still there, that'd be good. But the problem is there's no staff, so I can't contact anyone still there to help facilitate that because there's no staff to do it. So
hey Dante, if you want to use our page as maybe like a communication post, whatever, feel free to make a post on our page, and then you guys can maybe set up some help that way. Just you can use our page to make a post if you need to.
Yeah, we'll do it every weekend.
Yeah, I think that
Yes.
would be really good for the guys that are still there because heaven knows they've been through enough.
So yeah,
Certainly.
so go ahead, use our page to communicate and all that stuff to see if we can help out anybody else that might need some help. Because, like I said, we want to make sure everybody's fed, taken care of, and safe and all that stuff. So yeah, use our page, please.
Do you have any insight as to what transpired this past weekend? Do you have any idea when Ellen or the team knew the players weren't going to play? How much advance notice did they have that there wasn't going to be a game Sunday?
There was definitely a little bit of notice. I'm not going to go too much into that, just out of respect for the guys that are still there.
We lost your audio, Dante.
There we go. Okay.
I was just saying.
It muted you at a perfect time.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention in the comments, there's fans from, it looks like Dragons, there's Dogs, there's the Storm. There's just, it's amazing the people that are tuning in. They want to help you guys, so that's awesome.
Actually, your old broadcaster for the team, Sean Ziers, just offered that he wanted to lead something to help. So I don't know if you know that name's familiar to you, but he said he was broadcaster for the organization at one point. So
yeah,
that's part of it. I mean, just like the family, the same way that the families from Quad kind of taking the ice and picking up some pieces, knowing there's something going on. I mean, it's because it's part of the brotherhood, and they're going to stand with their brothers before they stand with anybody else. And so knowing like, hey, you can't necessarily be here right now for certain reasons, but we'll pick up, we'll make sure that everything still gets taken care of. And that's what this is about. And we talked about it on last week's podcast with Coach John Krupinski, which was an amazing podcast. So anyone who hasn't seen it should go watch it. And but we talked a lot about just that hockey family, and that's what a lot of this is about, and that's what we've created here. Like, me and Dante wouldn't meet from Adam for the rest of our lives, but even in this kind of situation, we get to come together, figure out what the problem is, the truth, because it's when you look into like the SPHL and you're not going to get super big details like you would if something happened like this in the NHL. Like if there was anything weird going on, it's not going to be like on paper. There's not going to be reports about it. You have to get the word of mouth of like the people who experienced it. And so, and that's what this podcast is all about. That's what we try to do, is just build that family as big as we can all over the nation and abroad, just so we can get these things handled. But, for sure.
Yeah. Hockey's
is
one
there
big
anything else that you wanted to cover? I know there's like just tons and tons. Is there anything?
I could regale you guys with the entire story of the entire team from top to bottom if you guys wanted to hear it. I'd be more than happy.
Oh, shit.
On that note.
Yeah. This is just so fitting to the whole situation. It's
live TV.
Yeah, but it's like you said, Bobcat Tuesday, right? It's so
exactly.
Oh my God, my mind is blown right now. I've been following hockey. I'm 45 years old. I've been following hockey all my life, every level, and I cannot. The closest thing to Vermillion County that I can think of was back, I believe, in the Central Hockey League days when they had the Border City Bandits in Texarkana. It was such a it was a mess there. I remember the Cottonmouths went there to play, and literally the ice was so bad that all they could do was a shootout. And that team folded right around the end of the middle of the season. It's like, this reminds me so much of that situation that it's really sad.
Right. Certainly unfortunate.
Yeah.
Brandon Baker said, "Let Dante talk more. It looks like you have more to say."
Oh, I certainly do. I would like to share everything that happened from start to finish. Honestly, to clear some of the names of a lot of the people, because if you're a Bobcat and you leave the team, you don't often leave on good terms. And if you're not leaving on good terms, Ellen Tully will have something to say about it. So there are a ton of people who have definitely had their reputation dragged through the mud, rumors and all that sort of thing. So I won't name anyone by name in any of these stories, but if they wanted to claim that as their story, in defense of themselves, that'd be probably a good opportunity for them. Because I'm not alone in having a story of being released from a professional hockey organization under ridiculous circumstances. I certainly know when I got home, some of the guys at the rink when I came home and skated were like, "There's no way that happened. You got cut because you suck." Stuff like that. And some of it's said jokingly, but who's really going to believe you were released from a professional hockey team because you cooked Thanksgiving dinner for your team? Probably nobody. So and it's not just players. There's staff too that have been let go, and they deserve to find new jobs and not have their names dragged through the mud. So if you guys can bear with me, I certainly would enjoy telling the rest of the stories that I have.
Yeah, let's go. We were planning
Go right
on doing for an hour, but I know there's so much more to do. I can't see cutting this off. We got to keep going. As long as people are wanting to hear it and you're willing to tell us a little bit more, I say let's keep going. Let's get as much out there as we can. Keep telling your story.
Absolutely.
We'll step back, and it's your form. Go ahead. We'll step back and go ahead.
So I kind of type things out mostly in order of how they happened, and mostly the things that are important. But if anyone has a question and they want to type it and throw it in, I can always pause the story to answer those things. That way, everyone's getting what they need out of this podcast. But we kind of left off around Christmas time, I believe. So if we're going to dive back in, I'd say that's the spot. So last year around Christmas time, we finally got our trainer, and that again was a moment of hope because he is the best trainer I've ever had in my entire career, which spans 11 years of both junior and pro.
Okay.
We'll
just wait. He'll be back. He'll be back. But yeah, this is crazy. But yeah, for those of you who are just tuning in again, it's live technical issues. We have Dante Juris, original Bobcat. He's just going into giving us all the details about being with the organization from the beginning, what the first season was, what the beginning of this season was, and kind of what he knows about the whole mess that went down this past weekend. So, as Dante's pick up where you left off and got cut off.
Okay, so after Christmas, we finally got our trainer. So we had played up until then. So injuries were kind of being kept secret, or you would have to go to urgent care, and they'd do what they could. And really, it was tough. There's a couple guys with some ankle injuries that drug on for a very long time when they didn't need to, because if you don't have a trainer there every day to help you do your rehab and your recovery and that kind of thing, you're in a situation where once, maybe twice a week, you're going to the hospital to do rehab there. And that's really not enough for a professional athlete, especially when you're expected to be on the ice every day and stuff. So we definitely had players that had injuries drag out because of that. And that can affect your career for sure. So we finally got our trainer, and when he came in, again, it was a moment of hope. Like I said, over my entire career, both junior and pro, he has been the best trainer I've ever had. He kept me going when I was essentially on one leg for almost a third of the season. So he was amazing. But when he came in, he did fix some of the issues we were having. Like, we finally got a warm-up bike. So, before practice, after practice, 4 games, after games, you could warm up or cool down on a bike. He brought some medical equipment. So we actually had like a trainer in a training room, and he set to work getting the other teams the things they were supposed to be provided. So they would have Gatorade for the games and towels and hygiene stuff and all that stuff. So it was a moment of hope, but it was pretty short-lived. Pretty quickly after we lost our trainer, I think we probably had our first emotional release of the year. And when I say that, we had a player released over purely emotional things by the owner, not even the coach. not going to name names, but there was a player who defended himself and his career trajectory on social media from an old coach, and she didn't like that. So for being a family and for sticking together, apparently you can't stick up for yourself in a very mildly worded post on Twitter. So he was released for that, and he is one of our better players and a veteran, so that didn't help the team at all by any stretch. And then after that, we ran into the next player getting released, again, based on emotions. So one player was released. It's still hazy as to why he was released. Some say it was off-ice issues that were legitimate. Some people might tell you it was on-ice stuff, but he was a good hockey player. He was released. I believe the situation he had was he was released from the team, had his car repossessed, and had no way of getting anywhere and really had no money. So one of our other teammates let him stay on the couch because, we're a family. This guy was your teammate, your brother, all of 3 days ago, 2 days ago, whatever the case would be. It's freezing out. It's, it's February now we're talking about, it's cold. This is Illinois. So the guy sleeps on a couch, and next thing you know, the player who allows him to sleep on a couch is released from the team. And the roommate of that player, who didn't even know about the whole situation, loses a letter. And this is all from the edict of the owner. So, that doesn't help the team out any. And one of those players is no longer playing hockey. Another one is struggling to, continue his career in the SP when he's a player that should not be struggling to play in this league at all. But when you get released from, the last place team, it doesn't look good. So, and no one would believe that your owner released you because you let a teammate sleep on your couch. So he didn't deserve that at all. Then we move on from there. It's just more of your typical drama, more of the stupid stuff. We had a road trip to Huntsville. Huntsville is one of the longer road trips of the year for us. And, the road trip like that needs to be planned out pretty well. Well, unfortunately, the plan was we have a morning skate, hop on the bus, make the trip to Huntsville, settle in the day before, maybe even stop in Nashville so the boys can, get out, stretch their legs, enjoy the city of Nashville. Well, that all got ruined because we don't have the staff, apparently, to find us a bus for the trip. So we get off the ice for practice after the morning, and we're supposed to be leaving straight on the bus. There's no bus. So our trainer, bless his soul, is finding us a bus day of when we're leaving the trip. Why is your trainer doing that? Well, that's because we don't have staff. Why don't we have staff? Well, that's because you like to fire them. So, everyone in the organization is wearing 25 hats, kind of unfair. So the Huntsville trip, we had to find a bus day of. That bus could only take us to Huntsville. Then we had to find another bus once we're there. And it's just added stress and stuff to a long road trip to go play, the best team in the league that year. I'd say Huntsville was, and it's just unnecessary. And, it kind of sucks the enjoyment out of a road trip, because road trips can be a lot of fun, but not when you're scrambling to get on a bus, scrambling to find a bus even. And then I think it was our very next road trip, the very next weekend, a whole other dilemma. So to get into it, this one's kind of funny, actually. It's funny after the fact, not very funny at the time. Instead of busing to Macon, because I guess it was going to be cheaper, we were going to fly to Macon. So flights were figured out. We were taking off early in the morning. So we're taking off from Indy early in the morning. So our owner had invited some players to stay at her house so that, they weren't driving an hour and a half to the airport, dog-ass tired, or weren't buying a hotel in Indy to get on that flight. So Coach Niedert and myself, we drove to Macon with all of the gear. And we're already on our way to Macon. And I get a phone call from one of the guys like, hey, I know you've been to Ellen's house before. Have you heard from her? Do you know how to get in? Like, what's the deal? We're knocking on the door. She hasn't answered. We're calling. She hasn't answered. I'm like, I'm not too sure. Like, well, she invited us here. We're supposed to be staying the night here. She promised us a place to stay. We got to figure it out. So it was a mildly amusing situation watching them because we were on FaceTime watching them run around the house, knock on doors, trying to figure out like who's there, who's not. And then Coach Nieder receives a phone call as we're starting to panic. Like, is our owner okay? Like, what's happening? Is she healthy? Is she well? Why isn't she answering these players who she invited to her house? And it's like, I don't know, 9 or 10 in the evening at that point. So we actually pulled over, and we're at a gas station parking lot trying to figure it out. And she calls Coach Nieder.
Okay. He'll be back. All right. Sean Patrick had to leave. He has some personal business to take care of. But we're going to keep rolling as soon as we get Dante back. I knew the situation there was bad, but I had no clue that it could be this bad.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And we're back.
We're back. Dante Juris is joining us. We're talking about the chaos in Vermillion County. We got Dante Juris, original Bobcat, released around Thanksgiving, apparently because the owner felt she wasn't invited to Thanksgiving dinner or wasn't given enough duties to make Thanksgiving dinner, which to me is I'm trying not to curse, but that's bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, it's not ideal. But to continue that story, we're now pulled over in a gas station parking lot, and Coach Needs gets a call from Ellen, and she's like, "Why are they here? Why are they at my house? What are they doing here? They're just knocking on the door. I have a gun. I almost shot one of them." And it's just like, that's not and she's laughing about it at this point, and it's like, that's not a funny situation at all. You invited the players over to your house. You promised them a place to stay and a meal, and they're supposed to be flying to Macon for a weekend set. Like, that's like the fact that you can't even take this seriously enough, and then you go and joke about almost shooting one of your players. Like, in what world is that appropriate? And like, looking back on it now, we all laugh about it. It's kind of funny, haha. But at the time, it's just like, what is going on? Because we went through a whirlwind of emotions. Like, no one's heard from her in hours. Is she okay? Is she safe? And then you hear someone almost got shot, and you're like, what the heck? And we're talking about, like, I think 5-6 players are there or something like that. So just a ridiculous situation to be in. But those guys ended up buying their own hotel room, and ended up making it onto the flight just fine. But again, that's just, you promise guys a place to stay so they don't have to get a hotel room, and then you don't deliver. Again, that's another $50 out of the pocket, and these things add up. So she was actually supposed to be on the flight. She was supposed to join the team on that road trip. She never made it. She rescheduled the flight several times. So that was a concerning story at the time, but now looking back on it, it's kind of funny. Moving on from there, we split that weekend with Macon, and Macon was at the bottom of the league last year as well. So she was pretty upset that we split and didn't just beat them, outright 2-0. So I guess when we got back, she was conspiring with some of the players to fire Coach Needs. And in what world is that appropriate? We've got, 3 games left, 2 games left or something like that. We've barely got a week. Just get us through the end of the year. We don't need this drama. Like, the finish line is in sight. Like, we don't need that. And the way that Nieder was not let go is really confusing, and I feel very bad for him. He didn't deserve that. But in the end, we essentially got a message in the group chat like, "Hey boys, I just want you to know I haven't quit on you. I can't be there to finish the year, but I haven't quit on you, and keep working hard," was the message we got. And then we have her telling us that he's not fired, and he just went home because she didn't want him behind the bench for a game or something. It was just ridiculous drama. So we get David Ayers brought in for our last couple of games, and David Ayers is a great guy, but is that really your first choice? Are you really going to go for publicity with 2-3 games less? Like, what are we doing here?
You hate to use it as a joke, but it's like, if you're going to bring in the Zamboni driver, bring him in the beginning of the season when you needed to fix the Zamboni.
Yeah, for sure. And there were other things that went on that time. I remember we had a player that had a serious health issue, and he ended up in the hospital. And when he got out of the hospital, instead of bonding together as a team, we get told in the locker room, oh, it's his roommate's fault because of drugs and exposure to drugs, and his roommate did this, and you guys can't be doing drugs. They're all laced and stuff. When really it had nothing to do with that. So it's just like, did his roommate really need the added stress of being told, hey, it's your fault, and being blamed for that? Now he's got to worry about, well, am I getting released because of this? And yeah, that's not good. So that's kind of where the year ended. We ended with David Ayers. It was kind of a sorry way to go out, but like a sorry way for some guys to retire. You kind of have the love of the game sucked out of you. But that's how it ended. I actually thought I was going to retire at the time. I had a lot of injuries and health issues building up at that time, so I thought I was done. And I kind of stepped back a little bit. I did have like a friendly relationship with the owner, and through most of the summer we stayed in contact. And then right before the season, I decided, it'd be good to come back because I could use the money, I could use the place to stay and all that stuff. So signed with the team, and right off the bat, here we go again, more problems. So she spent the entire summer talking about getting an NHL coach to leave the National Hockey League to come coach the SPHL instead of, figuring out legitimate candidates. Like what are we talking about? And in the end, we ended up with a good coach and a good guy, but this is his first coaching gig, and you're throwing him into the mix last second, and you're expecting him to wear 25 different hats. We get there for we had a free agent camp, and we got there for that, and the ice had been put in just days before, and it was atrocious ice for that. And our equipment manager, Mikey, probably the best EQ in the league, shout out to Mikey. He was doing so much for the organization during the summer because we had no staff at the time. She had fired the broadcaster, claiming he had stolen things. He wasn't doing his job. The broadcaster who was doing 18 different things for the organization, working himself to death, was fired unceremoniously, and that was unfair. So shout out to John for that. But we get to the situation where our equipment manager is helping the ice be installed into the arena because no one was scheduled at the arena. We were bringing in a person who was able to install the ice and fix some of the issues, and no one was there when that guy drove in from, I think, Iowa, except for Mikey. So Mikey had to put down what he was doing to help out get the ice installed. Not his job, but he did it. Priorities, right? Well, the thing he was working on was a specialty night jersey, and that didn't get done on time. So that was the beginning of the end for him. She was swearing him out, this, that, and the other. He doesn't do his job. He's lazy, all this nonsense because he was putting in the ice instead of, worrying about a specialty jersey that's not due to be worn until November or December or something like that. And it just built up until he was eventually I believe he left because he found his job posted on a website, which is not an appropriate way to get rid of somebody. So again, we're at the beginning of the season. We don't have a trainer again because our trainer moved up a league and got a better job. So we're beginning the year, no trainer, fresh coach, lost our EQ right at the beginning. Our first two games didn't get recorded. We didn't have a broadcaster. The score clock wasn't even working for our first two games. Like just ridiculous stuff. Like all of the hallmarks of last year, but worse. And then, tokening back to the previous year, we bring in someone. I think the president the title he received was president of hockey ops. We bring him in to help boost some hope in the locker room, and that didn't go so well in the end. But we brought him in because, Ellen, being who Ellen is, somebody is apparently trying to murder her and she can't do her job, so she has to bring somebody in, because she's a victim and everything. So we bring that guy in, and he does turn some things around. But I think the beginning of the end for this year was the Fayetteville road trip. We had a weekend set in Quad the week before. She had spent all summer recruiting players, talking about our long road trips. We're going to fly. We're not even going to take a bus. We're going to treat you well. So Fayetteville, long road trip comes. We're supposed to be flying. She cancels the flights last minute because we didn't win our games in quad. Because, and I quote, "You guys don't deserve it. You didn't earn it. You don't deserve to fly." And then come to find out, we can't get a last minute bus because it costs extra, and she doesn't want to pay extra again because we don't deserve it. So on a 11-hour road trip to Fayetteville, we're forced to cram into Sprinter vans. So, we're talking, you don't have a restroom, you don't have room to stretch your legs. You're crammed shoulder to shoulder with your teammates in a Sprinter van. We got the coach and the equipment manager driving one van. The president of hockey ops called a friend to come in and drive the other van, just like, not professional hockey, not up to the SPHL level. And I think that was really where it all started to go downhill from there. That Fayetteville trip, I believe, was a weekend or two before Thanksgiving. So that happened. We had a couple of home games, I think, and then Thanksgiving happened where I was released, and I kind of went home. I stayed in the group chat, so I kind of saw everything that happened from there. But we ended up firing the coach immediately after I left. It was funny. We actually hung out together, having both been outcasted from the team the same weekend. And she hired the guy that our president of hockey ops hired as van driver. So, I mean, he had coached before, and he certainly was qualified. But when she hired him, nothing was said about his hiring. He just stepped in the locker room one day and assumed control of the reins. So I don't know if that's a way to announce to your team you have a new coach, but that's how that was done. And then the next incident that I heard of was another teammate, a player from the previous season, close friend of mine. He went home for Christmas after having been denied a release because he wasn't getting ice time. He was denied a release, denied a trade. He went home for Christmas and was unable to come back on time because he was in the hospital. I believe he had the flu or COVID or something, but he was in a hospital. So he was late arriving. And instead of calling his agent, checking on him, see if he's okay, because we're a family, he was put on team suspension, where he has been since Christmas. He hasn't been released. He hasn't been given the opportunity to play anywhere else in the league for the crime of being ill and asking for a release that he was not granted the week prior. To this day, he says they have not answered any of his phone calls or texts, or his agent's phone calls and texts. So he is being held hostage. And that was the last incident prior to this incident that caused the team to kind of go under. Again, the reason I brought up all of these other things was in defense of all of the guys from last year, but also to kind of give you an idea of everything that the players have been dealing with from day one. So the incident that happened here that kind of resulted in not having players, not having staff, and not playing a game, guys were told they were allowed to leave town, visit their families, or do whatever they wanted on an off weekend if they have no game scheduled. So coach says you're free to go, they go. And then it's thrown in the group chat, hey, you're not allowed to go. You can't go anywhere, come back. And, at this point, guys are at home with their families. Like, why would they? There's nothing scheduled. But the owner didn't like, apparently, that players leave town for God knows what reason. Because heaven forbid, when you're, spending 8-9 months away from your family, you get an off week and you go see them. That's the end of the world, I guess. But she threw in the group chat that guys had to come back. She said mandatory apartment inspections, this, that, and the other. Otherwise, you might be fined or suspended if you're not there. And some guys complained. That's what led to them being released. And the group chat was a player-only group chat, so it wasn't like they were complaining to management. It wasn't like they were saying anything ridiculous. It was a very mild thing that got one of the guys released, simply saying this is unfair. We shouldn't be expected to be treated like we're 5-year-olds or something like that. And it's completely reasonable. So you're gonna release 3 players because they made completely reasonable complaints. So now those guys lose their jobs. They're trying to find other places, and then the players that are still there were kind of fed up with it and the whole situation. So I know there were some other things going on. I think a couple guys may not have received paychecks. The rumor going around that they didn't have health insurance at the time. There was a rumor started allegedly from Ellen about a sexual relationship with the trainer and another player, which is completely inappropriate to start a rumor like that. Because the trainer that they did have was a great trainer, hardworking woman, and that is illegal on top of horrible for her career. So if you're going to allege she's a criminal and, and stuff like that, obviously she's not going to stick around. So she left. So ended up firing the president of hockey ops, because he went to bat for the boys in that situation, fired the coach. I think the broadcaster they had at the time resigned. So you've got no one in the front office now. You've got no coach, no trainer. You're down on players, and now you're asking them, hey, get on the bus and go to Quad City with, 12, 13 guys, no trainer, no coach. I don't think that's going to happen. So, other than being fed up with it, it's just flat out not safe for them to be playing. It's not safe for them to compete at this level of hockey with no resources. So that should kind of answer what's happening right now without going too much into detail. And, hopefully the league can do something for them, because they don't deserve to be in this position at all. And it's not their fault that they're in it. So
it sounds to me like she was an extreme micromanager. She didn't let the coach do his job. Didn't let the the equipment manager do their job. Didn't let as a good owner steps back and lets the people who know what they're doing do their job. And it's like it seemed like she wanted control of everything.
Yeah, that was the complaint from every coach and from every staff member we had is, that she wants it done this way. And if it doesn't get done this way, then, you're not doing your job properly, or you're disrespecting me, or, the old trotted out stealing from the team line to fire people. I think every person that was fired last season and over this summer, it was alleged that they had stolen from the team and disrespected the owner. That went for Coach Nieder. That went for our front office guy, Anthony, who was, kicking ass, getting people in seats to come watch a terrible product in the arena. That goes for our broadcaster, John. That goes for Mikey, our EQ, all those people. And like I said, I had a relationship with Ellen, so I would be on the phone. She would just rant endlessly about these people. And, I'm sitting there listening to it, knowing none of this is true. But what am I going to say? If I say, hey, that's unreasonable, now I lose my job, and it's kind of unfair. And I honestly, I don't know if she had the team because she wanted a hockey team, or if she had the team because she wanted to control people. But I think it's probably the latter, because, when you're in a position of that kind of power where somebody's job is on the line, and particularly in minor pro hockey, it's not just the job, but you also live there. It's your living quarters. You might not have a place to go to if you get fired or released. When you're in that kind of position of power, people have to listen to you. And I think that has a lot to do with why she wanted to have a hockey team.
All right. That's a power, plus that your career is online too. A lot of these things unfold where you just have, instead of being a family and expressing your feelings, you're being kind of like hushed up because you're worried about if you say something, it might affect your career for a long haul.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's pure dictatorship, right? And I watched it happen with, one of the coaches that got fired. Yeah, but family. One of the coaches that got fired trying to get a new job, and she's trying to call the owner of that team saying, don't hire him. Like, well, no, they're going to hire him, and they're not going to ask your input, because quite frankly, you don't go to the old boss who had problems to figure out whether an employee is good. And I would say for any GMs, teams, owners, anything listening to that, if you're thinking about hiring a former Bobcat, they're all great people. The cancer was purely at the top. They're all great, hardworking people. They deserve an opportunity. Unlike what was put in the group chat, they deserve to be in the SPHL and not the FPHL. So, yeah.
I feel bad for guys like you, because it seems like this whole situation has almost killed your love of the game. And to me, that breaks my heart as a hockey fan. Seeing you guys at this level, you're already playing for the love of the game. You're playing for peanuts as it is. And to have a situation like this kill your love of this, I call it a favorite sport. I love it. To see that happen to a player like you, this whole 2 hours we've been together, you're one of the nicest guys I've ever talked to. And I hope you don't let it completely kill your love of the game. And if you have an opportunity to stay in the game, I hope it doesn't, almost I'm trying to think of the word. I hope it doesn't discourage you from continuing your career.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me right now, it's just like you said, I don't love it at the moment. Um, if I go to the rink these days to train, it's just a drag. So it's hard for me to train. And the only time I actually enjoy playing is playing with a group of beer league guys, not playing serious hockey, just joking around, messing around. It's hard to try to have a career where you don't want to go into work. And, it's wild for me, someone who I didn't have the ability to play hockey when I was younger. I was a late start. I didn't start playing hockey till I was 12, but I loved the game so much. I would go and I'd play on my rollerblades for 5 hours a day minimum. And, I'd try to make up the skill gap with the other kids that were getting to play ice hockey when I wasn't. And I did love the game so very much. So it's crazy to think about like a 12-year-old me looking at me now like, oh, you're a professional hockey player, but you don't want to go to the rink. And it's a crazy thought, knowing how I fought and clawed to get to the level I got to then turn around and not even want to be at the rink some days. It's definitely tough.
I mean, your story comes out as like one of you had a whole bunch of optimism and all that stuff, but in the past like hour and a half we were together and all that stuff, I could just hear I could almost hear the optimism like fade. It's almost like a Titanic, but hockey style. You saw the ship leave port, and then there's a slow cruise up to the iceberg, basically. But I hope in this case that yeah, you do come back and give it a second go at it. I mean, there has to be some other team out there that will take you, but I know you have to have the passion for it, or the drive for it. So we wish you the best.
I think the big difference between Vermillion County and the Titanic was the captain of the Titanic wasn't steering it into the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the captain stayed with the boat. It sounds like that this captain took off the helicopter on the board, took off the boat there by itself.
Yeah, I think that's a more apt comparison. The captain left the helm and took off and left the guys to sink on their own.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Dante, if I don't know if you can see the comments that are going on right now, but if you haven't, when the video goes and read the comments, because there's a lot of love and support for you in there right now. So I also wanted to mention too, I'm hoping that what's going on with Ellen, and they'll learn that her word is garbage throughout the league, and hopefully it won't blackball any players. And I too wish you the kind, and I know for a lot of us, we really appreciate you telling your story, and I'm sorry you went through what you did, because it's bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously it does suck, but more importantly, the guys that are still there, still struggling, they still love the game, they still want to play, and they're just in a position where they're not able to. So, as much as it sucks for me, it's even worse for them. So, really, I'm on this podcast to try to raise some awareness and try to get something figured out for those guys, because they don't deserve to be in the position they're in at all.
No, they don't. And me personally, as far as like you, the love of your job, I was a truck driver for 10 years. That was my dream job. And I was with a bad company, ended bad, and it killed my love for basically the job I always dreamed about being. So I can fully understand your lack of you don't love the game anymore, and I can fully understand why you wouldn't want to get back into it. And my I hate to say it, my condolences for that, but seriously, I mean, to have your love of the sport that you love just killed inside of you, I can't even imagine how that felt when when all this went down and happened. I sympathize with you. I fully do.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing is sort of a slow burn, right? It's not like you just wake up one day and, oh, look, I hate my job, so it's
right. But what gets me is this whole almost like family first type, propaganda. And anytime anybody has anything to say or express their feelings, you guys are pretty much hushed up and shushed up and can't express their feelings, which to me is just not cool. How can you be family for you? Can't even express your feelings.
Really
He'll be
quick
right back.
before Dante comes back, we see comments. I think it's awesome. There's so much support here. If you guys could just drop some comments for Dante to go back and read, like show him and the Bobcats right now, show him, because I know that it's the small things that can really mean something to those guys. So show them some love in the comments.
And if you have anything you want to send to Dante after we're done here, go to our Facebook page. We'll put a thread on our Facebook page. We'll put a thread on our Trash Talk page. If anybody has anything they want to say to Dante, post it in there too. I'll send them to him. And anything for anybody on the team, and I'll send it to him, and he can forward it on to whoever you want it to. And we're getting messages from people who did work for the team. I'm telling you right now, I don't think this is going to be our last live video about this situation. We're going to keep covering it, and we're going to do everything we can. Whether you were the broadcaster, whether you were the guy running the video board, whether you were a player, the equipment manager, the trainer, reach out to us. If you want to talk, we'll gladly go live again.
I know that I also have a go ahead, Anna. Go ahead.
Just going to say, I know you have so much to tell. So if you want to do another, definitely, whether there's an update or just more to the story that you want to tell, like I know we would definitely be up for that. I think the fans would be.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if they have any questions that I might be able to answer, help them out with, because, as much as this sucks for the players, I know it sucks for the fans too.
For sure.
Like I said, we do have some great fans in Vermillion County, and fans of the league are very passionate as well, and no one wants to see a team go under. No one wants to see players struggle, and it sucks, to not know whether or not you're still going to have your hockey team, and whether or not you're going to be able to see the guys play again. So hopefully we can get some things answered for them as well, because it's also unfair for them.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add here before we wrap this up? Anything you want to say to the fans, to the Quad City players who stepped up and did the most awesome things skating with the Vermillion County fans? Anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
Yeah, to the fans, I'd like to say thank you for your continued support and your kind words. You guys have been great through this whole thing, and I know it's a struggle for you, so thanks a lot for that. And the boys in Quad, I know we've gotten in some tussles on the ice, but you guys are first class for sure for that, and you're all great people, so we really appreciate that, and I'm sure the fans appreciate it too.
And we're getting support from all over, not just the SPHL fans, FPHL fans. I think I've seen a couple, even ECHL fans, all around the hockey community just rallying around these players. And this is what I wanted to see. This is about the players. It ain't the players' fault. I don't see how anybody, and I'm going to say this to anybody. If you want to blame the players for what happened, you need to look in the damn mirror. Okay, the players were being listen to what Dante said. The players were being treated like, you said it, like circus monkeys.
Yeah.
Here's a cracker monkey dance. That's not right.
Yeah.
They're not animals. They're human beings. They have feelings. They have financial obligations, and for them to be treated this way, it's not right.
Yeah.
I'm still taken back on the whole idea about all your travel plans. So many changes now. So wow. You get told that you're gonna fly, then you don't. It just kind of like, I don't know, false promises and all that stuff, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard enough when you're the broadcaster trying to schedule buses and flights and whatnot on top of your broadcasting duties, on top of doing the finances. But then on top of it, when you have an owner who's vindictively saying the players don't deserve to travel in that manner, make it cheaper, it just adds to it. So,
right.
Certainly.
It's like a guy trying to get a girl and all that stuff, and trying to, I have a job like this. I make all these promises to you, and you end up like in a small one-bedroom apartment somewhere. But yeah, I definitely get it. But thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all the Bobcat players that, past and present, that have put their time and effort onto the ice to entertain us while furthering your career. We thank you very much for doing all that stuff. Quad City, once again, I did make a post in one of your fan groups. You guys were awesome. The stuff that you did for the fans, like I said, in Vermillion County was above and beyond. So that's where I guess I will leave off. And I thank you very much for coming on the show, Dante. We really appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me. I really do. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much.
And
Amazing. What best wishes to you for your future.
Thank you.
yeah, well, we're here. Like I said, we're here. We're not done. We're not going to leave this alone. So we'll be back. We're coming back, and we're keeping an eye on this whole situation.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I appreciate you being willing to come on here tonight and take you a couple hours out of your night to do this and get the word out. And let's keep our fingers crossed. The right thing happens for these players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it will. Like I said, the league's a first-class league, great league. There's 10 organizations within the league that are great, and that means there's 10 great owners. So I'm sure it'll get figured out for them pretty soon. So fingers crossed.
Yep. I appreciate you, Dante, and we appreciate everybody who tuned in, who gave your questions and your comments. We wish we could have gotten to every single fan question, but the important thing was Dante getting the story out there and getting this done. But again, everybody who tuned in, we appreciate it, and we'll see you back Friday with our regular episode.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, audience, and thank you, Dante.